This video series is going to focus on not only the coverages that teams are playing against the Ravens as we move into 2022 and what we struggle with against each coverage, but also why teams are playing these coverages. I'm going to focus this video series, I call it a series, it's going to be 2 parts, maybe 3. This first one is only going to focus on the Bills defense in 2020. What I'm going to attempt to do through 2 or maybe 3 videos is not just tell you why what coverages teams are playing and why they're playing them, but in order to explain why they're playing them, I have to show you when teams are playing them and where, meaning where the ball is located on the field. And there's a sneaky element to this, to be honest with you. And I have to point it out, it's about the AFC North. Other than the Bengals, and they will be featured in this series, it'll be probably during the Saturday morning live stream. These rules or patterns or principles don't really apply to the AFC North. What I mean is, this situation, how teams are defending Lamar and the Ravens, is more so teams outside of our division. And it's because they've noticed the specific threat that Lamar Jackson is. Not just as a scrambler, but more so as a quarterback who can deliver the ball and do damage. And I'll prove that in a moment. Here's what I mean. Beginning with the Bills' performance in the 2020 AFC divisional round, which was masterful. Masterful. Teams outside of our division have relied on these 3 principles. I'm going to name 3 quickly. Play a too-high structure with quarters or split field principles, coverage principles, between R20, and this picture you see here, ball's on R25, between R20 and like their 35 or 40. So once we're nearing or in field goal range, they're going to change their coverage from a quarters too high with soft corners, keep everything in front, to then a different coverage or a different concept, which is really points number or principle number 2 and principle number 3. And they are morph your 4-3 into a 6-1 and bring 6-man pressure, but still play quarters behind it. That would be a rough explanation of principle number 2. And then the third part is sticks blitz 0 on third down, but also to be used sometimes as we approach the red zone situations. And I'll explain all this in more detail as we get to the film. Those, to me, those principles were implemented because of how well Lamar had been attacking people in the pass game. And what I mean by that is through 5 weeks in 2021, we know what his stats were. Well, we should if we're Ravens fans. And here's a reminder if you don't. It's an article, snip of an article from CBS Sports writer named Jeff Kerr from October 12th of 2021. This is through 5 games, and he explains that this is after the Colts Monday Night Football game where Lamar put on a show. And Jeff Kerr explains that Lamar had more total yards than 18 NFL teams to this point. Now, 5 games is a small sample size compared to 17 or 16, but it's not a small sample size, really. And some of the teams that he had more total yards than, to that point, the Packers, Saints, 49ers, Patriots, Colts, and Bengals. Clearly, we've got to give him more help. We've got to give him more help. We've got to put less responsibility on his shoulders. Those are issues for another video. But that's an incredible stat. And the next week, he didn't play bad. Week 6 against the Chargers, he did have 2 INTs, but one of them was a really bad drop by Rashad Bateman on the slant. Completely all Bateman's fault. He normally catches that ball, but we can't apply any blame to Lamar for that one. We didn't need Lamar to do anything or much against the Chargers to beat them. We ran the ball down their throat. Their defense was soft. It was. That's why they addressed it in the offseason so heavily. Week 7, the Bengals used what I would consider a blueprint, a guideline on how to limit the Ravens' offense, while also addressing some of the things Lamar does well. And the Bengals and Lou, I can never say the guy's last name, Anna Mario, he's the defense coordinator, got a lot of respect for him, and I got a lot of respect for the Bengals defense. But unfortunately, they've received all the credit for creating this, quote, blueprint on how to defend Lamar, and they should not have. That blueprint was laid down by longtime NFL coach and Bills defensive coordinator in 2020, Leslie Frazier. I want to present an overview of how I think 4-3 teams have tried to emulate that plan, that game plan, since this divisional round loss. Am I saying the Ravens can't overcome this plan? No, not at all. All right? This is just a return to fundamental defense, if you ask me. A 4-3 is different from a 3-4 in one regard against the option. I'll explain that a little bit here in a minute. But I'm going to show the opening 3 plays. Ravens were running the ball down the Bills' throat early. So if you want to say, hey, it wasn't working, their defense wasn't working, look at where the ball is on the field. That first play was from the 25. It's a stretch wind back scheme, and Gus is great at those things. Against their 4-3-2 high safety defense with the corners off, and Gus ripped a big gain. First down, second play. Corners up a little close, but you can see the safeties are still deep back here. 4-3 structure. And we've got 22 personnel on here. So Ricard, Gus, and 2 tight ends. Run this counter option scheme, which is one of the greatest plays in football. One of the ones I like the best. Let me put it that way. We're running the ball down the Bills' throats. Third play, same defensive look. Quarters, 2 high safety look. Corners are off. We're in a joker set right now. JK's getting removed to the pistol. And you really don't get any reaction from the defense. So we can say, hey, our scheme, our run scheme, was beating them up. I agree. They were set up for the play action pass. I agree. You can look at the safeties' reactions, though, and see that they're not, even on this third play in a row, they're not necessarily quick to the ball, even when Micah Hyde was coming downhill there. Fourth play I'm going to show you, not the fourth play in the drive. That's principle number 1 that I just showed you, okay? Principle number 1, I'm going to recap. Play quarters principles, 2 high safety structure, in between the 20 and the 35. Now the ball's on the 40 here. So those are zone concepts where there's defenders at all levels, and they have their eyes on a key. Either the quarterback, let me go back to a picture of it just so I can, as I explain it. And they have their eyes on a key, either the quarterback or the ball. So essentially, create the ability for 9 people to come forward and attack on a run play. Avoid playing man early in drives to get more hats to the football against the run. And rely on defenders' ability to read the run, come forward, and fit where they're assigned to. That will be principle number 1 from a 4-3 structure. That's just old school defensive philosophies, foundational elements of playing it a little more safe in between. Some people you say in between the 20s. I don't think that necessarily applies when you've got big play people like Marquise Brown and others on our team, and Lamar obviously has the ability to stretch a run, take it to the house. That's just old school principles that you've seen for decades. All right, the fourth play I believe that I'm going to show you is a different principle. This is principle number 2. When the ball is moved to about the 35, like I said, Ravens across midfield, and they're either in field goal range or approaching it, the philosophy changes. Just like it does on a 3rd and long, to be honest with you. Take your 4-3 and change it to a 6-1. Try to get edge pressure. You can see the ball is on the line of scrimmage is on the 40. Now the Ravens are not interested in throwing the ball yet because they haven't made us. So we're running the same counter option scheme. Lamar keeps it. Shows how special he is, right? But what are they trying to do with the scheme? With all these guys being up here, there's your 2 other inside linebackers. Some people call them outside linebackers, whatever. They're your 4-3 Sam and Will, all right? They're walked up on the line. You've created a 6-1 look where your Mike is the only remaining inside linebacker as a second-level player. So at this point, the Bills are triggered. They're pissed off. They want to stop the run. Great. They didn't use this look back on when the Ravens had the ball on the first play of the drive, or the second play of the drive, or even the third. They used this look at a certain point on the field, a certain location on the field. And I'm not going to get into Bengals film, but the structure and the location of where the ball is in the Bills and Bengals games tells you the coverage. You can predict it like clockwork. We're reading this defensive end here on the counter option. We're pulling 2 guys. So Lamar is going to open to the defensive end that he's reading. He has to because he has to get his eyes on him. Ricard is reading the same thing. This defensive end slams down. Like to take the running back. Ricard loops around because he's reading the DN the same way. Lamar keeps it. It's a keep read. It's a great read. And he does this really cool move where he acts like he's going to go inside here. This tight end is base blocking this, what I believe is a corner. So the corner's keeping his outside arm free. He's the force player, trying to basically create a wall here and make Lamar go inside. What Lamar did was he did go inside, and then he bounces it back out once the corner hedges in. It actually wasn't a corner. I'm not sure who. That was actually the OLB. So that's principle number 2. Let me digress a little bit here. The Bengals used this exact look in Week 7. on almost the exact same part of the field. I thought about showing you guys the locations of the field, different teams playing the same exact front, same exact coverage on different. So I thought about doing it that way. I decided to show it as a progression because what happened was a Bills possession, this one, the first one, and two Bengals possessions played out the same way with the coverages and the fronts happening in the same exact order, and I thought that that was noticeable. You can see that with the 6-1, you still got a corner and a corner who are off, and you've still got a safety and a safety who are off, meaning they're lined up soft. Now this one guy's at 5 yards, so he's not, really that soft to coverage. He's a typical alignment for a corner when he doesn't have a receiver. And it's not every time in this sequence or this series whereby you're going to get this 6-1 look in this part of the field. The Broncos were really reliant on the sticks blitz zero. The Dolphins obviously were because they ran it like 37 times or something like that. The point is, some of these experienced defensive coaches are just playing good, sound defense depending on where the ball is on the field. They're still doing, but they're doing it for a reason because of the threat that we have at quarterback. This one is interesting. This will be principle number 3, which we've unfortunately heard a shit ton about in the last 7, 8, 9 months, something like that. Sticks blitz zero. This is the first time I saw this, to be honest with you. And like I said, it was implemented because of how good Lamar is at throwing the ball and how good he is at extending plays and then taking off running. He can rip off a 30-yard gain in an instant if your pass rush, isn't disciplined. 3rd and 18, first possession of the game, and the Bills are in sticks. It's not exactly sticks because here's the line to go, and these DBs aren't lined up, right at the sticks. So it's not exactly sticks, but it is blitz zero. Bringing heavy pressure, not paying any attention to the motion by Marquise Brown at all. Because when he comes back to the other side, nobody's moving, nobody's shifting. And we end up with a nice completion to Miles Boykin on a short underneath route. Clearly, we were just trying to get the ball, into field goal range. This is the first time I had seen this coverage against the Ravens. Other teams around the NFL clearly saw it as well. The Bills did play it, I believe, 2 more times in this game. So don't get me wrong, this is not the only iteration of it, from that playoff loss. On this drive, obviously, we were lucky to convert a 4th and 1. There was a Bills defensive penalty, mind you. I thought there could have been a penalty called on the Ravens. Heavy pressure scheme, only 4 guys in real coverage. Converging on the ball, still a good game. We know Tucker missed the field goal on the next play, unfortunately. But let's focus on the coverage and why they're bringing it. They're bringing it because they wanted to force the ball out of Lamar's hands. I made this comparison in another video earlier this offseason. I would compare it to basketball, whereby you're trying to get the ball out of LeBron James' hands. You're trying to get the ball out of Steph Curry's hands. So when they run a pick and roll, it actually kind of helps the defense. Because now we know where LeBron or Steph Curry is. Generally, if they're off ball, you don't know where they're going to be. It might look like a play to the right side of the court, and then there might be some action off ball to the other side, and Steph Curry or LeBron James or any other great player like Kevin Durant springs open at the top of the key. But on a pick and roll or screen and roll, you know where they are. They have the ball. The same concept applies here with a quarterback. You know the ball snapped to him. So this, to me, sticks blitz zero is the same concept as blitzing or double teaming LeBron or Steph Curry or any other great offensive player off a screen and roll. Why? Get the ball out of his hands. Make someone else make a play. And for those of us that, wished we had other playmakers, you can say, well, if we had other playmakers, they wouldn't be able to do that. I mean, that's a valid point. There's nothing wrong with that point. You could certainly say that the playmakers we had on this night were not that great. Comparatively, putting Bateman on the field right here is a better option than Willie Snead or Miles Boykin, along with Marquise Brown and Mark Andrews. That improves us dramatically, if you ask me. But this is smart. They're forcing Lamar to get rid of the ball quick. They know where he's going to be. He's got to receive the snap. You get the end zone angle of some of these blitz zero calls, which you will see in the second and then maybe third part of the series, and you'll see there's just nowhere to go. There's nowhere for Lamar to run if he's trying to run. We've got to have better concepts to attack it. These aren't bad. There's nothing wrong with this on a 3rd and 19, but that's not going to be available to us necessarily, particularly in the Dolphins game. Some of the ways they were doing it, it wasn't available to them. I laid out 3 principles for you guys. I'm going to lay the exact same 3 principles out when I cover the Bengals film, to be real. Almost the exact same part of the field. I don't know if Leslie Frazier and Lou Anamario, I know I'm mispronouncing his name and I feel disrespectful for doing that. I don't know if they ever coached together, so if they communicated, I don't know. But in the NFL, of course, they get all the film and they have access to it in the offseason. The Bengals, I think, knew what they were doing, defending our offense the way Greg Roman runs it, with our quarterback, who is our most dangerous playmaker, clearly, with particular coverages depending on where the field is. And those people that are advocating for more playmakers aren't wrong for asking for guys who can make plays no matter where the ball is located to change that dynamic. In the offseason, I said I thought DK Metcalf changed that dynamic. He would take the situation, and we go 3-by-1. Now, if you want to stay in quarters, you've got a decision to make. Do we leave 2 guys backside or not? Quarters principles say that you do. But DK Metcalf's physicality and ability to go up and get the football over the shorter DBs that the Bengals and Browns have, means that he changes that dynamic totally. I hope you'll tune in, to the live stream on Saturday. I'm going to attempt to present to you that, and I using the word blueprint was wrong earlier, but there is a formula that teams have that they think works. Now, we know as Ravens fans, reason why some of those coverages worked in 2021, because we had a subpar offensive line. Without being disrespectful and naming guys, we had a bottom 6 or 8 offensive line in the league. Maybe worse, depending on, your opinion. But clearly, very bad. Pass pro was terrible. Problems at left guard, problems at left tackle. Real problems at right tackle once Patrick McCarry got hurt. His pass pro was better early in the season before he got hurt. Running back situation obviously curtailed, minimized the effectiveness of our offense. Rashad Bateman being hurt for the first 5 games. Sammy Watkins having some injury problems mid-season, I believe. But not being, a great version of himself either. So we know that at full strength, full caliber team, some of the things people did would not work as well. I get that. But these are the coverages we're going to see. We're going to see these coverages in these parts of the field because it's just a fundamental thing to do. Where the ball is spotted right now in this picture, it's just a fundamental thing to do to play a 3-level defense. You got 4 D linemen, 3 inside backers, and then 2 corners, 2 safeties. So you have 3 levels to the defense. With Wink Martindale, a lot of times we were playing a 2-level defense, whereby we're bringing so much pressure, we've created a lot of space and inconsistent pursuit angles because we're playing man. That's another reason why our tackling was bad, and that's what I say a fundamental method of playing defense is playing some of these coverages because it gives guys consistent angles. And the picture you got right here, you got 2 corners to be the force players. They're the guys with their feet on the 30 or just inside the 30 to the top side of the field. You got linebackers that can run inside out. They're the guys whose inside feet are on the hashes. And then the safeties, both of whose feet on the 35 or the 36, who can be your alley players, your guys to run inside out and fit in between the corner and the inside linebacker, along with the D end who's in the C gap. What we would do on defense, and I did a video earlier tonight showing our over-reliance on man freeze, particularly in certain situations. And I didn't show the tackling issues, but we all know we can remember plays where we did not tackle well. A lot of times teams that play heavy man don't tackle well. They don't because they have inconsistent pursuit angles that you can't practice every day. You don't know the route the receiver is going to run, so therefore you as a defensive player don't always take the same or similar pursuit angle depending on where you're lined up. Hope that makes sense. Maybe I didn't need to do a video on that, showing particular plays. Let me know what you think of this concept. I'm going to advance this a little further. Again, as we get to, probably going to do the Bengals game first on Saturday, then the Broncos Bengals, then the Vikings, because they're both 4-3 teams, just like the Bills were in 2020, who play with a too high safety structure often. Bengals do mix it up and go 3-4 sometimes, but they're a 4-3 team generally. But they play a lot of nickel too, which is 4-2-5 personnel. And then I'll finish it up with the Broncos and the Dolphins, 3-4 teams, really, who played a lot of sticks, blitz zero, as opposed to quarters. Let me know what you guys think of the video idea, some of my thoughts during this commentary. The too high safety structure is something that we will see. In my opinion, we have to get better at attacking it. I didn't really offer any, ideas here. Clearly, you can't run the ball on every down, but we were beating them up early in this possession. I will show some plays on Saturday from the 3rd possession of the Bills game and the 7th possession of the Bills game. This was just to lay out my theory and some of the observations that I have. So if you think that where they're playing these coverages only happened on the first drive, that is incorrect. This was consistent across the game and has been consistent if you watch other 4-3 teams defend us, like the Bengals and the Vikings in 2021. Appreciate you guys checking out the video. If you haven't considered it yet, please consider joining my channel as a member. You can do that. You can support me there for $1.99 a month, $4.99 a month, or $9.99 a month. You're certainly not required to do so. If you submit a video request and you are a member, obviously I'm going to fulfill that request as soon as possible. But even if you're not a member, I'll go ahead and do the video anyway. I rely on you guys for video ideas. I certainly can't come up with all the best ideas by myself. Appreciate you guys' time. Let me know what you think of the video concept in the comment section, what you think of some of my observations and thoughts about how the Ravens can attack these coverages.